So if you've ever struggled with being able to make a real significant lasting change in some area of your life, then you may find this video useful and helpful, because what I'm going to share are the principles and the approach and some of the lessons I've learned in being able to successfully engineer and create multiple big leaps and transformations in my own life. My name is Andre, and I'm here to help you elevate always and in all ways. So let's dive in. I want to start by asking you a simple question. Is it easier to pick something heavy up or to put something heavy down? A bit of a trick question, right? Because it's obviously easier to put something heavy down if you're already holding it than to lift it. If you've ever tried to train pull-ups in the gym, and if you can't do pull-ups, or if you've just studied training methodologies, you'll know that for people who cannot do a pull-up, what they can do is train negative pull-ups until they can do a full pull-up. Now, what's a negative pull-up? A negative pull-up is simply finding a way to get up to the bar where you're already up there, and then just doing the negative part, the release part, aka putting something heavy down. You can get up there by jumping up to it, and with that momentum, being able to pull yourself up. You can, step on a box, a chair, whatever it takes. But the idea here is, if you can't do a full pull-up, so the positive motion, lifting something heavy, pulling yourself up, and then the negative motion, putting something down, you can train just the putting down part of the pull-up, the negative part of the pull-up, and just by simply training that consistently long enough, you will develop the capacity and the strength to be able to do the positive part of the pull-up as well, aka lifting something heavy, pulling yourself up. So then you're doing full pull-ups. So the interesting thing here is, and what I'm driving at, is that by training just the negative or eccentric part of the movement, you can build up the capacity and the strength to then be able to do the positive or concentric part of the movement. Now, how does that apply to making changes in our lives, being able to make lasting, significant change in our life and create transformation? Well, here's how. You only need three major things to create big change in your life. Okay? Pay attention. One is you need a level of commitment that hits a point of threshold where you're actually once and for all going to take action. Two, you need some sort of a plan. Don't need a grand master plan. And as all things go with plans and starting new things, by default, because there's something new, you don't know what you don't know. And so whatever plan you start with is not the plan you're going to end with. But you do need some sort of a starting plan. And then the third thing that you need is a capacity or a knowledge for knowing how to deal with and overcome negative emotions and emotional resistance and chaos, which will always be created and caused when you start making changes in your life. Because you're in a comfort zone, you're in a routine, and so when you start changing that, all kinds of chaos is going to start to happen to try to get you to stay in your comfort zone. So what did I just say? Three things. A strong enough level of commitment, some sort of a plan, a capacity and understanding for knowing how to handle and process and overcome negative emotions. Okay. Step one is having a level of commitment that is strong enough for you to take action. Most people stop there and don't ever have anything beyond that. Don't ever develop a level of commitment needed to take action. Now, we pretend that we're taking action by reading a lot of books on personal development, self-help and such, but that's all mental masturbation. It's just filling us with head knowledge, but we don't have any true knowing of it because we haven't actually done any application with all the head knowledge, which, side quest, is one of the main reasons why we have so much frustration, why you'll meet people who know so much intellectually, but whose life doesn't reflect all the things that they seem to know. And you'll find that they are deeply, deeply agitated and anxious. It's because they are mentally, intellectually obese, but they are results anorexic in their life. Side quest over, back to the main topic. So you need to have a level of commitment that's actually going to get you to take action. You need to have a plan of some sort. Like, I think these are the next 5 steps I need to take. Here's what I'm going to do for 3 months. Whatever it is, you can go after it. And then the third thing is you need to know how to deal with negative emotions and emotional resistance. It is impossible to not experience emotional resistance and chaos emotionally and mentally when you start making real big changes. And earlier I asked you, is it harder to pick something up or put something down? And I think we can all agree it's easier to put something heavy down than to pick it up. Now, let's tie that all together. If you have finally hit a place in the level of commitment where you're going to finally take action, what I would encourage you to do, or suggest for you to do, if you have failed previously in the past with sticking with an attempt at making a change in your life, what I would encourage you to start with is by putting heavy things down, metaphorically speaking. And what I mean by that is simply eliminating things that you know are not serving you or are standing in your way, and doing nothing else but just that for a season and for a while. And in just doing that, just eliminating things. So you're not trying to go do a bunch of new things. You're not trying to lift. That's the metaphor. Metaphorically, that's the part where you're trying to lift the weight. You're not trying to add doing a bunch of new things. Simply start by eliminating or removing things that you know that you already do, so you don't have to do the positive part of the movement, right? The concentric. You just simply do the negative part of the pull-up, just letting it down, just letting it go. You're already doing it. Kind of is like a weird metaphor, but I find this analogy helpful for me, and I found it to be useful. Other people have found it to be useful as well, so that's why I'm sharing it with you. Even just by eliminating things and removing things that you know do not serve you, that is enough of a change to begin to trigger the inevitable, inbound, seemingly overwhelming emotional resistance and chaos. And that is where you need to spend some time practicing how to deal with that shit, so that you are not run by your feelings and your emotions. This was something that was true for me for many, many, many years in my life. And when you don't know that it's happening, you engage in typically one of 3 kinds of actions, or all 3, or 2 out of 3: repression, suppression, and escapism. And then, of course, there's always a rationalization for it. But once you become aware of it, you get some self-awareness going. You realize that you kind of have to figure out how to deal with these feelings, thoughts, and emotions that come up. And so let me give you some simple ways, let me give you some simple examples of what putting things down can look like. Here's one for my personal application. Cutting out going to coffee shops or cafes before 12 o'clock noon. Because I would, for a while, bring my laptop, bring everything I needed to work. But when I went there, it would always be I would constantly end up in some sort of distracting escapism-based behavior. Reading more of the book, watching a YouTube video to learn more, talking with people, whatever it is. So what I told myself was, okay, from now on, Andre, you can't go to a coffee shop in the morning. You got to stay at home and work from home, do your stuff from home. And then, of course, I found that very quickly you could still engage in a lot of escapism behavior, at home with just something as simple as Instagram or YouTube. So what I did was then I set another rule where I could not get on and engage with social media until 12 o'clock. So I didn't eliminate social media completely, and I didn't eliminate going to these regular coffee haunts where I know a lot of people know me, and it's always fun, and so that fun social dopamine is there, et cetera, et cetera. I didn't eliminate it altogether. I just simply eliminated it in the morning till noon. And so I told myself, listen, man, if the only thing that you can then come up with to do is sit on the couch in a catatonic state, miserable that you're not going out and making the social rounds at a coffee shop or hanging out with people or doing what you normally do or not being able to go on social media, if the only thing I do is sit in silence on my couch, that's still a win because I'm simply not doing the things that I said I would not do. Now, you may laugh and think it's silly, but you'd be amazed at the amount of emotional horseshit and resistance that will come up to something as simple and silly as I'm not going to go to coffee shops in the morning or I'm going to not get on social media until 12 o'clock. Especially if it's a habit that you're used to. Now, again, I'm not talking about these two things specifically. I'm giving you examples of taking something you already do that you at this point know in your life is not serving you. It's getting in your way and you could be doing better. So you eliminate that routine, that habit, that thing, that behavior. Again, I'm giving you two silly, simple, true examples from my own life. These might relate to you exactly the way I'm describing it. You may have other things that are in your daily structure, your behavior, your routine that you now know are no longer serving you, and it may be time to reevaluate how much space you allow those things to take up in your life. And so literally sometimes I would just be sitting on my couch. Like I have this list of work to do, but I won't do it because, procrastination is so much fun. But I didn't go to the coffee shops and I didn't get on social media and I didn't watch YouTube, right? I couldn't do anything that was my typical dopamine chasing escapism behavior. And so I just sit there on the couch sometimes. Half an hour would pass, 45 minutes would pass, an hour would pass. You know what happens is all these thoughts, all these negotiations with yourself, all these things come up. And you start to realize, like, where's all this coming from? And why am I having such a strong, visceral, emotional response to this shit? Something as silly and simple as this. When I go on vacation, I'm not going to my normal coffee shops. I'm perfectly fine. When I go hang out with friends on trips or something, I'm not checking social media. I'm fine. So why is it so necessary right now? Why is my nervous system freaking out over it? I'll get into emotional and chemical addictions in another video. But the important part here is, again, in wanting to make significant change in your life, if you start actually taking action, a default inevitability that's going to happen very quickly is emotional resistance and chaos. This is something usually they don't tell you about when they sell you the big transformation program. But it's always going to happen because what you're trying to do is knock yourself out of the life you're in into the life you say you want. But that transition move is like, it's as big of a jarring change to your psyche and your nervous system and just the homeostasis of where you're at. It's as big of a change to yourself emotionally, mentally, neurologically, blah, 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 whatever big words you want to throw at it. It's as big of a change to yourself as it would be to physically move from where you live now into another like physical apartment or house. That's how big of a change it is. Does that make sense? Like, really think about that, because that would be a really big change, right? That's as big of a change as you're actually trying to create internally. And so going into creating big transformation and change in your life unprepared and without understanding what's coming and having the tools to know how to get through it and overcome it is going to simply, if you don't have the tools in place and knowledge to know how to do it, you're going to just make the process of change, 10 to 100 times harder and rougher than it needs to be. Now, what do you do with these emotions and these thoughts and these feelings when they come up? A really, really powerful book, or useful book that I think could help you with this, if you're interested, is a book called Letting Go. Wanted to show it to you. I have like 3 copies and they're never on the bookshelf because I'm always giving them out, letting them get borrowed and so forth. It's by this same author here, the guy who wrote Power versus Force, Hawkins, right? Yeah, David Hawkins. But it's a book called Letting Go. So this is a black and white cover, and the Letting Go is a yellow and white cover. And in it, he actually, the whole book is about, I guess if I were to summarize it, is about how to let go of negative emotions and feelings and resistance so that you can elevate your life to the next level and the next level and the next level, frequency-wise. If I were to sum up one of the main points of what I learned from reading Letting Go, it's that when these feelings come up, whatever emotional resistance or chaos comes up, just sit with it. Like literally, like right now, you see me sitting, just sit with it. And what I do is I scan for where I feel it in my body and how it shows up. Is it tightness in my chest? Is it a emptiness or tightness or queasiness in my stomach? Is it like this, screwdriver twisting in the back of my head? Is it pressure in my temple? And sometimes it comes up in a lot of different ways. And what I do is I just sit with it. I don't resist it. Here's the key. You cannot resist it and fight it and try to make it go away, because by resisting it, you're creating more of it because you're feeding it energy. So I don't resist it. And I also don't try to embrace it and let it pull me away. I simply sit with it and I feel it. I allow it to be seen, to be acknowledged. That's it. I don't fight it, but I also don't let it carry me away. I just sit with it. Because if you think about it, it's insane almost. There's something as silly as not getting on social media till noon, fasting all social media, YouTube videos, everything till noon, and not going to coffee shops I normally go to until noon. It's insane that something that seemingly silly and simple could create such a strong emotional resistance and charge. I mean, it's kind of nuts, because if something that small, tactically, could create such a backlash internally, what am I in for with some major big attempted changes, like growing my net worth significantly, or learning how to become a fit, healthy person, like back when I was 257 pounds, right? Now I have abs while I'm sitting, resting without flexing. You want to talk about emotional chaos and resistance that I went through in becoming the kind of person that was constantly yo-yo dieting and being fat and then leaning out and then getting fat and then leaning out, to now becoming a person that is always fit and lean. The body and the health and the fitness is a byproduct of who I've become as a person. The process of knowing how to deal with, process, handle, and overcome emotional resistance and negative emotions is the same for fasting social media or not going to coffee shops as it is for going from somebody who's constantly overweight by 50, 70 pounds to where I'm at now. The emotional resistance is sometimes the same, sometimes different. What I'm saying is that the process for knowing how to deal with it is the same. Whether it's growing the net worth and making different financial habits, whether it's becoming a more productive person, having to make completely different time management and daily structure habit changes, whatever it is. But this is what I'm driving out with this video. You're not, whatever it is that you say you want to have in life, if you don't have it now, then that means you simply don't have a self-identity currently that matches the version of you that has that outcome or that result. That's all it is. And so the mathematical formula is that you're having a self-identity that is congruent with the result or outcome you want is the prerequisite, right? You having the outcome result that you want is predicated upon you having a congruent self-identity, aka being the version of you who has that outcome or that result in your life. So if you don't have the outcome or the result that you want in your life right now, you're going to have to work on becoming that elevated version of yourself. To become an elevated version of yourself automatically means change. There's 3 things you need to do with change. You need to have a level of commitment that says, all right, I'm doing this shit. I'm in. No more. Enough's enough. I'm making a change. That's it. 2, you need to have some sort of a plan. I'm like, all right, these are the next steps I'm going to take based upon what I know today. And as I learn more information from taking action and taking steps, I will then keep improving and optimizing my plan. And then 3, you got to know how to deal with, overcome, and process the inevitable deluge, tsunami of emotional resistance and emotional chaos that's going to be triggered internally and then sometimes even somehow externally around you in your life when you really get after making a change. And so if you have started and failed to make that climb in the past, 1, you're not alone. I've been there many, many, many times in every area of my life. More than once in every area of my life. So it isn't just you. And 2, what might help is to just say, while I know what my grand vision is currently, and I'm ready to take action, why don't I just start by putting some heavy things down? Knowing that it's going to be shitty, it's going to suck for a little while, it's going to create a lot of emotional resistance and chaos, but I know that I need to know how to deal with that stuff if I'm ever going to get to the higher level that I want to get to. And I know I got to change. I got to become that elevated version of me, because if I can see those goals and that vision for myself, then I know I'm capable of attaining it, but I also know that this version of me doesn't have that outcome. So I know I got to elevate to a more badass version of me. And since emotional resistance and chaos is inevitable in any change, until that change becomes your new norm, until that elevated level becomes your new norm, you have to learn how to deal with emotional resistance and chaos. Feel those feelings. See those feelings. Sit with them. Don't get carried away by them. Don't resist them. Sit with them. You'd be amazed at how many hours I've spent sitting on my couch. Just sitting there. Sometimes angry. Sometimes roaring and yelling, punching the couch. Sometimes crying. Oftentimes just catatonically laying there like a mummy, or sitting there just staring. Just feeling feelings of like tightness in my chest and like lumps in my throat, and just like this rage or this sadness or this anger or this fear. And it's like, dude, are you okay, man? Like, this is just a little change in your daily structure and habit. Everything's gonna be okay, Andre. I got you, dude. I'm here with you, man. Like, this is me talking to myself, And what happens with these feelings is, as you sit with them and you don't resist, but you don't also get carried away by them, right? You don't resist them, but you don't let them dictate and control you either. What happens is they just run out of energy and then they stop. Like, that's how silly, mind-numbingly silly it is. They literally the storm just stops. Literally just dissipates. It's like there's a storm in the sky, and then 5 minutes later, it's all gone and it's sunny again. But until you see the feeling and just allow yourself to recognize where it's at in your body, hold a space for it and feel it, it's going to keep wreaking havoc and chaos in your body, in your psyche, in your energy field. And it's going to be subconsciously running you without you even realizing it. It's going to be dictating your micro habits, your macro habits, your thought patterns, your behaviors, your reactions, your triggers. It's running you and you don't even know it. I now know that that's what my life was for many years, because I was able to get some self-awareness, practice what I'm talking to you about right now, and coming face to face with that and being like, oh, wow. Whew. I've got a lot of couch time to look forward to. That's it for today's video. I need to probably remake this to make it better. It's also probably my ego talking and telling me that I'm not good enough. But I'm going to trust that this video is useful for you, or at least for somebody. And I'm sure I'll remake it in the future. But until then, it's easier to put heavy things down than to pick them up. And so maybe just training the putting something heavy down for a while, aka cutting something out of your life for a while, and allowing that to bring up all the emotional resistance and chaos, so you can practice letting go of that, being present with it, seeing it, feeling it, and letting it go until it runs out and exhausts itself, so you're free of it. Maybe you need to practice that for a little while and build up some competence and some capacity and some self-confidence. They're like, okay, all right, yeah, that sucked, but you know what? I now know that I know how to go through that, how to overcome it. Built that muscle, metaphorically. You see what I'm saying? So now you're now you have some more self-esteem, you have more self-respect, you got a little bit more shine, a little bit more mojo, a little more swagger, a little more confidence. Now you're ready to go for something a little bigger. Maybe pick something up, metaphorically speaking. And I'll say this in wrapping up, the two places where you can start by putting things down is daily habits and people. Things that you're doing consistently on a daily basis that you know are no longer serving you and getting in the way. And also the second place usually the lowest hanging fruit place to look is, maybe it's time for you to reevaluate some people you've allowed into your life, no matter the context or the history. And you either got to have some really blunt, honest conversations with them to transform and elevate that relationship, or you're going to have to pull back and let them go. So anyway, try putting something heavy down, see how that works.